Hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Your Relationship Podcast here in the new year, 2024. It's so strange. We just last month celebrated our first wedding anniversary, which was very bizarre. We've actually been together for 13 years, so it wasn't like, oh, we made it through our first year of marriage. It was like, yeah, that was kind of like the years before it. But even the fact that it has been a year since we got married is crazy. And the fact that it's 2024 is just like, how is that even a thing? Anyway, welcome to the new year. Super excited to kick off 2024 with today's interview. I hope that you guys got lost of rest and relaxation over the holidays and that you are now ready to rock. We are going to kick off this year with an interview that I did with Ruthie Sterrett. She's a marketing strategist, and we talked about your relationship with Instagram. And this one was really interesting for me because I've been trying to grow my Instagram. I think I've been doing a pretty good job, but if you're not following me on Instagram, Powerful Women Rising, go check it out. Anywho, I learned a lot from this interview, and Ruthie shares exactly how she creates what she calls 9 grid, which I'd never heard of before, but to kind of create a mini website for your business on Instagram. And so if you are just getting started, this is a great way to get started. If you are already on Instagram, this is a great way for you to create a grid in your profile that kind of stops the scroll and helps people find you, understand more about what you do. And the way that she talks about posting on Instagram is about creating content that nurtures, which you know I love, and converts to actual clients without you feeling like you are on what she calls the content creation hamster wheel, where it's just nonstop, got to create more, do more, post more, because nobody wants to do that. So this is a great interview. I'm super excited for you to hear it, and I would love to get your feedback. So shoot me a message on Instagram after you listen and let me know what you think. So here's a little bit about Ruthie. She is a marketing strategist. She's the founder of the Consistency Corner, which is a marketing and content agency for small business owners. Ruthie helps businesses create consistent content that drives revenue through content planning, simple marketing best practices, positive reinforcement, and accountability. Often, entrepreneurs are wearing so many hats that marketing and content creation becomes inconsistent while you juggle all of the things. So Ruthie created the Consistency Corner to help you create simple content frameworks, which build trust and lead to sales every month. And she's going to share some of those secrets with you today. Hello, Ruthie. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, Melissa. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, super excited to have you to talk about Instagram. I was just scrolling Instagram while I was waiting for you to log in. So I'm
it is
well prepared.
It is one of those things that keeps pulling us in. And we'll talk about this, I'm sure, today. We probably spend more time than maybe we should.
Yeah, no doubt.
I know I do.
No doubt. And then we tell ourselves, well, I spent a lot of time on Instagram today for my business because Taylor Swift reels are completely relevant to my business for the record.
Right.
So before we dive in, tell us a little bit about you and about your relationship with Instagram.
Yeah. So my name is Ruthie Sterrett. I'm the founder of the Consistency Corner, which is a marketing agency that helps business owners step away from social media. But what I found in my marketing career, I was actually a corporate retail marketing director for a small retailer here in Florida where I'm based. And at one time, I was managing 16, maybe even 17 different social media profiles. And also using social media to grow my own business, my side hustle at the time, and found myself spending a lot of time on the apps. And one day, after spending about 45 minutes scrolling, which was supposed to be 15, but turned into 45, put my phone down and realized that added no value to my life. But I kept scrolling because I was looking for that reel that was going to make me laugh, that meme that was going to inspire me, that update from a friend that was going to make me feel connected. But it wasn't. It was just draining my time and my energy. But I realized like, okay, I have to be on social media for my job. I also need to use social media to grow my business. Like, what the heck am I going to do? How do I use this without like giving away all of my energy? And that was when I really realized that Instagram and social media in and of itself is not a marketing strategy. Just like a coffee cup isn't coffee, it's a container for your coffee. And there's a lot of other containers that you could use. There's a lot of other liquids you could put in those containers. And social media is a container that we can use for our messaging. And there are other marketing containers we can use, such as long form content, whether it's video or blog or podcast, content for our website to drive SEO, networking, and just meeting people and having conversations. Those are all things that I would call containers or marketing activations. And social media is just a piece of that overall puzzle. And so then I really realized that we've got to build a marketing strategy that leverages social media, but doesn't make it the whole pie. It's a piece of the puzzle and it fits strategically in that marketing funnel of nurturing or attracting, nurturing, and converting. And then how do we create strategies that allow us to be really specific and intentional with social media versus just throwing spaghetti up at the wall, posting and praying that it will actually work, or then posting and being frustrated that one post didn't do what we wanted it to. And so as I left my corporate job in the spring of 2022 and started my agency and started helping other small businesses, a lot of people come to me for social media and I'm like, I'm not a social media manager. I will help you with social media, but only if we're doing the other things. Because it in and of itself isn't enough, but because people are on social media, 3 billion people are on Instagram, our business needs to have a presence. And so we're going to talk today about a content strategy that can give you a professional presence on Instagram without taking up all of your time. But one thing that I really want to encourage you to do is know now your own relationship with social media. How much time are you spending on the app? How is that time serving you or not serving you? And here's the thing. It could be that you are pumping out content. Okay, what does the data tell you? Is that making a difference? Or maybe you're like some of my clients where you're not posting because you don't know what to say or you feel overwhelmed, but that guilt is weighing on you. So then you're not able to show up creatively in other areas of your business because you don't know what to do. Or are you like me where you're posting and then you're starting to get burnout from posting? So understanding your own relationship and how much time you're spending on the app and what that time is doing for you mentally is really the first step.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the coffee cup analogy. That's a perfect analogy. My clients love me because I love analogies, and usually my analogies are really not that great. Sometimes I'm like, it's kind of like a foot with the butt. And they're like, no, that's not working. The coffee cup thing was great though, because I do think a lot of people think of social media as the marketing strategy. Like, what are you doing to market your business, right? You ask somebody that, their answer is always, well, I'm on Instagram, I post on LinkedIn, right? And so thinking of that more as the container. And that's one of the things I talk about a lot when I'm doing, my work with clients on business relationships is there's a lot of things that could look like. There's a lot of different containers, whether you're speaking on stage, you're writing a blog, you're posting on Instagram, but how are you doing those things to create relationships with your audience is way more important than the container that you're putting it in.
Yeah. And understanding that even if you're not currently finding clients on Instagram or clients aren't finding you on Instagram, they're still looking you up on Instagram. I work with some clients who they're really big on LinkedIn. You mentioned that's their platform of choice and their primary platform, but they need to have a presence on Instagram because when people are in the I'm going to make a decision mode. A lot of times what they're going to do is they're going to go binge content. They're going to go look you up in a couple different places as they're evaluating, do I want to hire you or the other person? I worked with a client who was in real estate And they were like, well, my clients love me and I get referrals all the time. And I'm like, okay, but there are other realtors that get referrals all the time. And so if my, best friend tells me realtor A is great, such and such, and then my, neighbor tells me, oh, so-and-so just sold us our house, they're great, I'm going to go look them up online and decide who I vibe with and who I connect with. And if I get to their Instagram and it's like a picture of you and your dog from 2007, I'm like, is this person in business? I don't know what their deal is. I don't even know. Like, we've got to have somewhat of a professional presence there because people are there.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was going to be my first question is, do you have to have a presence on Instagram if you have a business?
I believe so. I believe that you need to have a professional profile that has a link to your website if you have one. And if you don't, another way of how people can contact you if they're interested in working with you. If you have a brick and mortar business, I can't tell you how many people I see do this that don't have their location in their profile. There's a smoothie shop in our town that like followed me because they saw me, connect on somebody else's local hashtag. And I went to look them up and I was like, oh, I like smoothies. I want to go there. They didn't have their address. I didn't know where they were. And they were so new that like they didn't show up on Google Maps yet. And so when I finally figured out where they were, I went there and I was like, hey, put your address in your profile. And they're like, oh, thanks. But having a presence so that when people look you up, they can see what you're about. They can see how to connect with you and work with you. But it's not that we have to be pumping out content all the time. It's not that we have to be posting 3 times a day or 7 days a week or whatever it is, but having a professional and branded presence so that when people go to look you up, they have the information that they need.
Okay. So that's the difference, I think. And something that I think a lot of people miss is the difference between having a presence on each platform versus which one is the primary platform that you love to be on, that you consistently post the most on, that you like to engage with people on. So can you talk a little bit about the difference between like how we have different relationships with different platforms?
Yeah, I love that question. And I love that, with my clients, we speak a lot about consistency, and it's hard to be consistent with everything when you're trying to do too much. At the end of the day, you can do anything, but you cannot do everything. And so even with my corporate role and background, when I had a team, I led a team of 8. We were not on TikTok because we didn't have the bandwidth to do it consistently. And we kept saying, we should be on TikTok. We should be on TikTok. And I was like, no, we're not going to get over there because we don't have the bandwidth. Our primary platform at that time was Facebook. We started building up Instagram. And so what I ask business owners to do is choose, to your point, your primary platform. And we're going to build our content strategy around that platform. Then we're going to look at your bandwidth and determine, do you have the capacity to repurpose that content to other platforms? If we do, and it makes sense, great. If we don't, we're not going to worry about it because it's not helpful for you to post and ghost over on LinkedIn, never engage with community, never be there, and then be like, oh, LinkedIn doesn't work for me. Well, it's not that it doesn't work for you. You didn't put in the work. So like, let's pick our one platform and then layer in. And in fact, with my clients, when we do our content planning and our marketing strategy planning, I like to plan quarter by quarter. We will look at those different containers and say, what intensity have I been using in these containers? First question is, could I increase that intensity? Yes or no? And then if the answer is no, well, if you can't increase your intensity, we're not going to layer in another thing because you're just setting yourself up to fail. But if it's yes, I could increase my intensity. Okay, is that the right choice? Or do we now want to start building a presence on another platform and start growing on another platform? And it really depends upon you, where you like to spend time, where your ideal customers spend time, and working through all of those things. So there's no like hard and fast rule or answer for anybody. It's going to be dependent upon your business.
For sure. And when you talk about repurposing content from your main platform to the other platforms, I think I hear that word repurpose a lot. And I want to know what it means to you, because I think some people think repurpose means copy and paste from Facebook onto Instagram, add some hashtags, there we go. I think some people think repurpose means use my same Canva template, but change the colors and post on Instagram. So what do you mean when you say repurpose your content?
Yeah. I think you can have the same message and a similar like hook, story, call to action, but making sure that they're nuanced for that platform. It drives me absolutely nuts when I see people put links in Instagram posts. They're not clickable. Stop doing that. Like, there's your free tip for the day. But I see people doing it all the time because they're posting on Facebook and Facebook is their primary platform. And you can put links on Facebook. And then they just think like, oh, you click that little button so it shares to Instagram. But what's happening then is people are seeing your content on Instagram and they're like, I can't click that button. That's frustrating. I'm now annoyed at you. Like, we don't want that. And so I love to use scheduling platforms. My favorite is Flick, flick.social, because then you can take the same message, copy, paste, tweak slightly so that we are putting it in different places and repurposing it. But then, like you said, figuring out based upon your analytics, which platform is working the best for you, and then engaging on those platforms because you want to build a community. You want to give as much as you ask for. And so you want to be having conversations with people too. So if you're not on TikTok and you don't want to watch TikToks, then don't worry about TikTok.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like what you said about, I've never heard the phrase post and ghost, which is weird. I don't know why I've never heard that, but I like that idea too, because I think I see that a lot when people feel like, oh, I need to have a presence on every platform. I mean, I definitely do this with my Facebook business profile because I'm just like, I don't even know what's going on the Facebook business profile. Like, has anyone ever actually seen it? I'm not sure, but posting on all the platforms, but then not engaging on all the platforms. And I won't get on my soapbox about connections and relationships and how you're building them on social media. But can you talk about that just a little bit in terms of like, is there any value in posting on a platform without actually engaging with people there?
I think it depends, which is every marketer's favorite answer. I think it depends. Like I'll give an example of I have a client who's a doctor and we post on LinkedIn and we're not spending any time engaging on LinkedIn, but we're putting content up there that we have repurposed from other profiles. So we're already creating the content. It's already there. If someone goes to look them up, it's there. And this is where like the analytics matter because I look at the analytics every single month and say, is there any impressions that are happening? Are there any searches that are happening that are looking this person up? So in that case, it's easy to repurpose the content and get it up there. But we're not asking LinkedIn to grow. We're not asking that to be a primary source of traffic. And so when we talk about these different platforms, it's really sitting down and looking at your strategy of what are we asking the platforms to do? And I always want to ask business owners to get really clear on what's the business goal? What's the business goal from this platform? And for most business owners with social media, they think that the business goal is either followers, meaning eyeballs, top of funnel, or sales, conversion. And then they look at the numbers and they get really frustrated because they're like, my followers aren't growing or I'm not getting any sales from Instagram or whatever the platform is. Well, that's because for most people, social media is going to serve as a nurture container. It's going to serve as when somebody hears about you from a friend that is referring you, they're going to go look you up and binge your content. Or they find you through a Google search and then they check out your website and then decide to check out your social media. Or they maybe happen to be scrolling after they've hit follow and you share something that resonates and that furthers them along in that buying decision. But for the most part, social media is a nurture platform. And so even understanding that and knowing that we have to have strategies around attract and convert in other containers can kind of help shift that mindset around how to use social media. And that's where, my strategy of the 9 grid can be really helpful, because as a small business owner, you have a lot to do. And if you're even a semi-successful business owner, you're probably spending your time serving your clients. And so being on social media and putting a lot of energy into that is like, you don't have the time to do it, but you need to have a professional presence on there. So we have a strategy called the 9 grid where, and I didn't invent it, other people do it too, but I help my clients have a strategic 9 grid, which is a visual content strategy on Instagram where you create 9 posts that go together. So it looks like a puzzle. It's clear that those pieces go together, but through those 9 posts, they are almost like a mini website. And those 9 posts give the story of who you are, who you serve, the problems you solve, what it's like to work with you, what your brand values are and what you stand for. And so then when someone lands on your profile because they found you on a podcast or through a Google search or met you at an event, they've got really intentional content that they can binge to decide, is this person for me? Am I wanting to move further down the funnel? Or when they're like in that ready to make a decision mode, they can go back to that content and read through it again and decide, is this the person that I want to work with? Is this the person that I want to invest in? And you're not having to constantly churn out content and worry about what's on your social media profile.
Mm-hmm. So is the 9 grid something that we're doing once, or is it something that we're doing over and over again?
Yeah, that's a great question. I recommend that we post it once, we leave it for 90 days. Any content strategy that you plan on, whether it's an Instagram strategy or an email strategy or paid traffic, I love to test it for at least 90 days so that we can get some data on what is it doing for me. And in those 90 days, we're going to determine, what is my impression rate? What is my engagement rate? Am I showing up on stories or reels or not? And again, those decisions are going to be based upon your bandwidth and your business goals. Am I using other platforms? What's my web traffic look like? What am I hearing from clients about, the content that they saw? After 90 days, and we look at those metrics, we can ask ourselves, do I want the metrics to be different? And if so, is there something that I could do differently? And has anything changed in my business? Because 90 days is a great time to understand, like, are you going to launch a new offer? Are you going to update your pricing? Has your capacity changed? Do you have a new free resource? And then maybe you take the 9 grid and we refresh it. And I did this with my own business this past summer. So I had a summer 9 grid that really kind of talked about all of my different offers and ways that I help clients. And then as I moved into the fall and looked at my business goals, I realized that I really wanted to hone in on done for you services and kind of that higher ticket package. And so I redid my 9 grid. So it's more for that client, for who I'm trying to call in this season. And so when you look at your launch calendar, you can even kind of decide how and when a 9 grid might need a refresh. But once it's up, the relief you feel from not having to think about grid content is really helpful. I have a client who is a baker who we did a 9 grid for, and she was posting sporadically.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, what was happening is I'm in the kitchen trying to create, and I just have this heavy weight of, I didn't post today. I didn't follow the content plan. And she's like, once we got the 9 grid up, I just felt lighter. And I know that when I'm having a conversation with somebody and I tell them about my business and they go look me up, they're getting great content because we were really intentional with those 9 posts. And because we build them in a visual strategy where they look like they're all kind of connected and part of a puzzle, and even in the copywriting, hey, welcome to my page. This is my 9 grid, or this is the grid that shares the story of my business. People know that it's not oh, they haven't posted for 2 months, they must be out of business. They get it, that it's almost like a mini website for your business.
Yeah, that's really, really smart. So when you post a new one, do you delete the old one, or do they always stay up there?
So I leave them up. And there's even, when you go or like posting your very first one and you have maybe older content below that. I personally leave the older content. I think it's nice for people to be able to kind of see your journey if they want to, but I like to post a separation line where it's almost like 3 squares that are just a solid color, or 3 squares with words that are like, hey, above this line is what's happening in my business right now. Everything below is what I've done in the past. Take a look around and say hello, or something like that. I found if you take everything down, unless you've like completely pivoted your business and you want to change, completely what you do and who you serve and what you stand for. If you take everything down, it almost makes you look like a bot, where you're not. You're a real person. You're a real person who's trying to stop spending so much time on this stupid app. But it kind of shows people that journey, which I think people appreciate.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. If we have let's say I only have 10, 20 minutes a day to spend on Instagram. What's the best way for me to use that time? Like, is it even worth it if I only have 10, 20 minutes, if I don't have half a day to spend on Instagram? And what should I do during that time?
That's a great question. If you had 10 minutes, I would spend a minute or so sharing to stories. And that could be a talk to the camera. That could be a photo with some words on the text or on the screen. That could be B-roll video with some words, but something in stories. And I work with my clients on kind of a strategic plan about how to rotate different content ideas in your stories so that they're relevant for your business. But post to stories and then spend 5 to 10 minutes engaging with your community. Shout out people that, you like their content, share it to your stories, comment with true connection in their comments. If you listen to a podcast and somebody was really good on it, send them a DM and say thanks. Like, I cannot tell you how much that makes someone's day. And you build relationships from there. So spending the time building the relationships. And once you've set a 9 grid, you know that when you're connecting with those people and building those relationships, they go back to look at your profile. They're like, oh yeah, she does this, and this is who she can help. And then they're excited to refer you as well within their network because you've got that story for people to be able to binge on your profile.
Yeah, that's so smart. So what are your top tips for creating content on Instagram that nurtures or converts or does both?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think one of the things that I ask business owners to really think about when they're planning their content is that attract, nurture, and convert. And before we sit down to create a post, what is my intention for this post? What's the goal of this post? And if you use the 9 grid strategy, some of your posts, you're going to have a call to action to click the link in the bio or DM me the word for the thing for either a free resource or an offer or a how to work with me. But then some of the posts are going to be like a call to engage of like answering a question or sharing this with a friend or something like that. Now, for the most part, your 9 grid posts, unless it's like a really shareable quote, are probably not going to be attract pieces because they're static. And once they're up, they're there for people who are already finding you to be able to binge. But thinking about then your overall content strategy and marketing strategy and understanding which containers you're using for attract, nurture, and convert. And in fact, as part of my process, that's one of the things we do when I build a 9 grid for a client is we map out how are you attracting new eyes to your business? Are you running ads? Are you attending networking events? Do you have a process in place asking your existing clients to refer you or share your business? Because if you think you can do none of those things and put up a 9 grid and change your business, I am sorry, that is not a thing. There's no easy button. There's no magic bullet. I wish there was, but there's not. So we've got to look at all of those things and then know that when we do create that content, it's there to nurture. And then we can use stories, we can use email, we can use direct reach outs to convert and actually sell.
Yes, that's so smart. I love the idea of being very intentional about what is the purpose of this post. Am
Mhm.
I trying to connect with people? And am I trying to get people to buy my thing? And I think too, like part of that is being able to find that balance between the like super professional businessy posts and like, here's me with my dog, right? Because I think sometimes people stress out about like doing too much of one or the other. And
Mhm.
I think both are important because people want to connect with you on a business level, but more than that, they want to connect with you on a human level, right? Like if I
Yeah.
need a marketing person and I sit down with Sally and she's like very rigid and doesn't swear and doesn't think my jokes are funny, I'm like, thanks, Sally. Then I sit down with Ruthie and Ruthie's like super easy to talk to. She's just like me. She laughs at my jokes. She loves her dog as much as I love my dog. Now we've got that connection that makes me be like, okay, maybe this is the way to go.
Yeah. I remember I majored in sales and sales management when I was in college. And I loved the correlations between sales and marketing because they go together, but they're not the same thing. And I remember in one of my classes having this conversation, it always sticks with me, is that the customer is always right, but not every customer is the right customer. And
Mm-hmm.
so putting out content in that kind of attract, nurture, and convert formula can help make sure that you're getting the right customers, the customers that are going to light you up, the community that is going to, make work fun for you and make you want to do the thing that you're so great at doing. And a lot of times I see business owners get stuck in one phase of the funnel. I mean, most of us have one phase that we kind of lean towards of like, I'm going to spend most of my time here. For me, it's nurture.
Mm-hmm.
It's like engage. It's like, let me tell you about my day. Let me cheer you on. Let me share some tips. And so like one of the things that I've done this fall to try to be more intentional is on my daily habits checklist. I have what did you do today to get new eyes on your business? And then what did you do today to sell something? Because I knew that that was my own personal pattern. But there are
Mm-hmm.
other business owners who might be like, heavy sales and the only time they ever post is when they need a sale and buy my thing and they need to put some goals out around nurture, or maybe we're nurturing and converting but we're not doing anything to get new eyes on our business. And that was the case with the corporate client that I worked with, in that because their budget was limited, they stopped doing things to attract, and so they weren't filling the top of the funnel, and so they were maintaining but they weren't growing. And
Mm-hmm.
so all of the pieces have important parts. And that's why, marketing is complex. It is a puzzle because we want to look at all three of those things. But just starting with like a post of what's my intention for this post can be really helpful.
Yeah, that's really, really good. This is such great information. I love it. I always love it when I have a guest that comes on that I can tell like she's just here to give the information and like actually help people figure it out. Those are
Yeah.
my favorite
And
ones.
with marketing, I'm a self-taught marketer. So I was in retail management and merchandising for years. And people used to always tell me, you should go into marketing. And I was like, I don't know anything about marketing. I didn't go to school for that. And so in working in retail and working side by side with the marketing department, and then having my own side hustle, trying to figure out, I tried blogging, tried direct sales, network marketing, all the things that many moms try. I was teaching myself marketing in the background and realized that like it is complex, but there's ways to break it down. And it's so funny that you said you love a good analogy. I love a good analogy. My husband is like, oh my gosh, here you are with another analogy. But it helps you understand these concepts. And so many business owners, I hear them and their frustration of like, I love to do what I do, but I don't love marketing. And they were sold this lie of if you build it, they will come, which is a lie. The truth is,
Mm-hmm.
if you build it and you market it, then they will come.
Mm-hmm. Especially if you market it with some sort of strategy.
Yes, absolutely. And so that's really, the consistency corner today. Our goal is to help you step away from marketing if it's not in your zone of genius. And then we have offers and ways to support you. If you want to do it and you want to get better at it, we can help you with that too.
That's awesome. So what's the best way for people to get in touch with you if they want to learn more about the consistency corner? I know you have a free resource to help people figure out if the 9 grid is right for them. What's the best way for them to get to you?
Yeah. So Instagram is my platform of choice. So I'm hanging out at the Consistency Corner. Shoot me a DM, say hello. I'm happy to point you in the direction of any resources that I have that can maybe help you. I'm the host of the Consistency Corner podcast. And so again, if you ask me a question, I might point you to a podcast episode that would be helpful. And then I have a resource of, it's like a decision tree of, is the 9 grid for me? Because it's not for everyone, but is it for me? And could this strategy work for me? So you can get that at theconsistencycorner.com/9 grid quiz, which I'm sure Melissa will put in the show notes as well.
Yep. I will put all of that in the show notes so everyone can reach out and connect with you. Highly recommend your podcast. It's so good. And I have a short attention span when it comes to podcasts. So if I think it's good, it's probably pretty good. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Ruthie. This has been amazing.
Yes. Thank you for having me. I loved our conversation today.
Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for listening to another episode of the Your Relationship With podcast. If you love this podcast, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes. If you want to learn more about Ruthie Sterrett and the Consistency Corner, I will drop her link to her Instagram and her website in the show notes. You can join the Consistent Content Club for help with creating content in your small business. It's only $27 a month and well worth it. If you want to learn more about the Powerful Women Rising community, I will also put that link in the show notes as well. Have a great week.